So I only make this list once a year. And after 3 years, I'm about to cut straight to the jugular. Number one asset on this list, Bitcoin. And I have some very important reasons why. The first being the Bitcoin halving. Back in 2020, before the halving, price of Bitcoin was $8,000. Fast forward to November of 2021, cycle top, we maxed out at 69,000. For context, that's only about a year and a half. And if you would have put $1,000 into Bitcoin before the halving, you would have saw a 900% return on your investment. It's not something I'm trying to miss again. So let's just say we get that same 900% from the current price, which as of making this video is about 30,000. We could be seeing a $275,000 Bitcoin by the end of this next cycle. Now, let's be realistic here. We know history doesn't ever repeat exactly. So let's say we only get half of that 900%. We are still looking at a 6-figure Bitcoin. Now, there's another side to this narrative. That's the mining side. Because the Bitcoin halving is going to reduce block rewards from 6.2 to 3.1, miners are going to have to work a little bit harder to stay in profit. But what is this going to mean for the price? According to JP Morgan, after the halving, the production cost to mine Bitcoin is supposed to increase to $40,000. Currently, it sits at around 29,000. You can find this out on Macro Micro. So what happens if it goes to $40,000? Well, the very first thing that's going to happen is miners' profits are going to start shrinking dramatically. And according to Kevin Zhang, Senior VP of Mining Strategy at Foundry, for miners to keep the same profit margins after the halving, Bitcoin's price will have to rise to 50 to 60,000 next year. Now, a related report from Matrixport predicts even higher numbers. They say 45,000 by the end of the year and 125,000 by the end of 2024. Whether this will play out before or after the halving, we can't be sure. But what we can be sure of is that the big miners are definitely moving in. Here are the September numbers from some of the biggest miners in the space. Marathon Digital produced 1,242 Bitcoins, a 16% increase from August and a 245% jump for the year. Riot Platforms increased its mining output by 9%, mining 362 Bitcoin. CleanSpark, which focuses on renewable sources for Bitcoin mining, we'll touch on that in a second, mined 643 Bitcoin, bringing their yearly number to 6,903. For context, because that may not seem like a lot, that's over 2,000 Bitcoin mined in the month of September. And with this recent price pump, that's about $100 or so million. But the key thing to take note of is that they all attribute this increase in production to the coming Bitcoin halving. Looks like they want to stay in profit for a while. Another layer to this mining narrative is the renewables. And if you look at data from this year, more than 50% of the Bitcoin being mined is being mined with renewable energy sources. Now, what I did was I went all the way to the top, because if you break this down by country, you find out some very interesting information. Let's start in the US. The US uses 22.5% renewables for their Bitcoin mining. Kazakhstan uses 11.3%, China 30.2%. Yes, they're still mining. Russia 18.5%, and Canada comes in at 69.7% renewables. This is courtesy of Visual Capitalist and a report they did with the Hive Corporation. It also includes data from wind, solar, and water. On that note, we can't forget about the geothermal movement occurring in El Salvador. All of that brings me to my last point on Bitcoin. This is not the same Bitcoin. We have ordinals now, which are bringing utility to Bitcoin, and this is also opening the conversation for compatibility with Ethereum. Can you imagine that? People like to put them at odds all the time, but what if they started to work together? Again, not the same Bitcoin. And on top of that, we have the Lightning Network, which according to River, a Bitcoin technology and financial services company, has seen a 1,200% increase in activity since its inception. River leads the market with a low-code solution for incorporating the Lightning Network into business. They use the number of users, transaction, and volume to estimate the growth of the network. And here's what they found. For August, 6.6 million transactions were recorded. Compare this to August of 2021, when only 503,000 were recorded. Now, this growth was in spite of the fact that Bitcoin's price dropped 44%, and search interest for Bitcoin also dropped another 45%. Even with that, again, we see utility rising. The main use cases driving the transactions came from gaming, social media tipping, and streaming, all of which can also be referred to as Web 3. So there is a Web 3 world on Bitcoin. Not a lot of people talking about that. I'll leave a link to this report down in the description if you want to make use of it. But with all of this on the table for Bitcoin, it had to top this list this year. But number 2 is Ethereum. We all know Ethereum for DeFi, gaming, NFTs, but more recently, there are a lot more use cases starting to hit the surface. And we're talking about tokenization, supply chain, digital IDs, energy resource management, music royalty management. All of this can be seen in the growth of the amount of layer 2 tokens or ERC20s on Ethereum. A report from the Economic Times in August says total value locked across layer 2s on ETH had surpassed $10.6 billion. Bit of a spoiler, one of those layer 2s are on this list. But the biggest narrative I am watching for Ethereum is central bank digital currencies. Now, I am not a proponent of central bank digital currencies. It's just when I look into Ethereum, the amount of work being done on Ethereum, it's something to look at. Let me give you a couple examples. Swift has a collaboration with Chainlink that tested interoperability with central bank digital currencies. The CCIP, or cross-chain interoperability protocol, gives Swift a direct gateway to Ethereum's SEPALA testnet. Remember when MasterCard tested NFT transfers using a wrapped version of a CBDC on Ethereum? Well, the reason they wanted to do that was to see if they could put CBDCs where they plan to put NFTs, basically everywhere. MIT and the Boston Fed are also working on something called Project Hamilton, and Project Hamilton supports Ethereum smart contracts for public and private transactions. In Brazil, their CBDC uses a software called Hyperledger Besu, which is compatible with the Ethereum virtual machine. Perhaps the biggest CBDC party going on in Ethereum's land right now is the M-Bridge pilot. This was conducted by central banks from China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the UAE back in 2022. The entire technical infrastructure uses Ethereum smart contract language and Ethereum's virtual machine. The next stage in that specific pilot is to explore zero-knowledge proofs, another technology often associated with Ethereum. And if you go to cbdctracker.org, courtesy of the Atlantic Council, you'll discover Norway, Australia, South Korea, and Israel are developing CBDCs using Ethereum's technology. Now, again, I am not supporting central bank digital currencies. I am just strictly observing the amount of work they are putting forth on Ethereum. We invest to find value, and you have to understand that CBDCs are merely digital fiat, and I don't see that idea going away anytime soon. So if all of the nations of the world, the big players, are planning to use Ethereum for it, then that must say something about this project. Think of this analogy. Ethereum is to blockchain what websites are to the internet, or if the money is digital, so is the hustle. Kidding. The future of this economy is going to be largely influenced by Web 3, and most of Web 3 is being built on Ethereum. Let's keep moving. Number 3, fan favorite around here, Stellar Lumen. Stellar has made this list for the 3rd time, and it's because I fully understand this asset. We're talking about 4 different use cases here: cross-border payments, asset tokenization, on and off ramps, and a disbursement. I have a video where I break down each use case in detail, but we're looking at a market of at least $300 billion worth of value to be captured by 2030. How could this happen? Well, the integration with USDC and their relationship with MoneyGram International. These can be looked at as on and off ramps for Stellar, and basically what you can do now is move USDC on another chain way cheaper than Ethereum. On the other side of that, with MoneyGram International, they're actually launching a self-custody wallet at the top of 2024 that is going to run on the Stellar blockchain. And yes, whenever we talk about Stellar, people like to bring up Ukraine, but I think it's going to lead to something bigger. Ukraine was just the starting point. There is now an exchange out there called Whitebit that has now tied themselves into that entire relationship. With Whitebit, it brought in the Ministry of Technology technology and advancement for the Ukraine, I think that it was just a starting point. Outside of that, I'm actually more fond of what Stellar is doing in Africa. A few years ago, they teamed up with a small payments company called Flutterwave. Now, Flutterwave is the biggest money service business in Africa, and they're running their stuff on Stellar. Not exclusively, but they have a lot of products that connect you to the Stellar ecosystem. So that is another form of on and off ramp. They're all over the place. That's why there's not much needing to be explained when it comes to XLM. I do have one more piece that I'm going to be paying attention to, and this is Soroban. All right, a little bit of technical info for you. Soroban is what gives Stellar Lumens the ability to write smart contracts. And just judging by how much smart contracts have meant to Ethereum, yeah, sky's the limit when it comes to XLM. But let's jump to number 4, another fan favorite here, and another asset that I feel like I know like the back of my hand is the XDC network. Let me lay the value prop for you. The Electronic Trade Documents Act is now official. This means that 80% of global trade is about to get digitized. It essentially makes it legal to use digital documentations in place of paper. Plenty of videos on that subject. Just did a recent one. You might want to check it out. Simply, this is going to reduce shipping costs and times dramatically, and it also has the potential to streamline trade finance funding, which is very key. The trade industry is, in essence, how you get your gifts on time during the holiday season. With these initiatives that are coming into place, like the Electronic Trade Documents Act and the overarching MLETR, which we'll talk about in a moment, this should make the entire shopping process a lot faster. And if we don't see it by this year, we'll definitely see it by next Christmas. XDC has been preparing themselves for this moment for a number of years in a number of ways by crafting relationships with organizations like the ITFA and the Blockchain Supply Chain Association. On top of that, they have multiple platforms in which companies can come to and use for digitizing documents, and they don't necessarily have to invest into a token. When you're dealing with the traditional medium, they don't want to have to deal with all this speculation, and XDC gives them an easy route around that. And if they want to, they do have the option to support XDC on that exchange, on that level. That's what SBI VC Trade did. Outside of that deal, XDC is also now tokenizing US securities, which I have another video coming out that came out this week, as a matter of fact, that broke that down as well. I just mentioned the SBI VC Trade deal. They're going to be supporting XDC. They're also going to be doing custody and development of the network. It was one of their biggest pulls this year, and it essentially gives them a somewhat permanent foothold in the Japanese trade finance market. Now, why is this important? The overarching initiative called MLETR. Now, I'm just going to give you a few facts on what it is. It's the model law for electronic transferable records. It was created by the UN in 2017. This is the overarching initiative to make the trade finance industry transfer from paper to digital documents. And according to Trade Finance Global, there are a number of countries that have made significant improvements towards the adoption of MLETR. Let's start here in the United States. Legislation enabling the use of most transferable documents is already in place. However, specific documents like bills of lading still require further application. Germany is in a much similar spot. They are now considering the option of adopting MLETR through implementing regulations. Here's the key place though. Japan. Japan has a study group exploring the application of MLETR to bills of lading and already possess laws based on different principles for electronic promissory notes. France is also very interested, along with India and China. The countries that have already adopted MLETR: Papua New Guinea, Belize, Kiribati, Bahrain, Paraguay, the Abu Dhabi global markets, and Singapore, where XDC is based. All of the puzzle pieces are in place, and this transformation is going to take place over the next 5 years. So again, XDC, that gives them the major advantage. And then here's something else to think about. Unlike with payments, which often have to deal with the financial regulators, the government regulators, and how businesses want to put it on their books, the trade finance industry is actively waiting for this transformation. They want this to happen. All the more reason why XDC has a number of advantages that people are not paying attention to. Number 5, Hadera. I see Hadera as the enterprise DLT. Now, I don't mean to put up the quotation marks as an offensive gesture. I'm looking at this from the future of marketing. Hadera, from the technical side, has made all the necessary improvements to make DLT adoption mainstream. Like, there's no more arguing that. Hadera, though, is also America's DLT, and I've made this point several times, and the more Hadera moves through the ecosystem, the more it makes sense. The inventor is an American man. Their base of operations, it's in Texas. All right, Texas. And not to mention, the governing council is filled with American companies, Fortune 500 companies. All right. So once regulations get finalized here, I can see Hadera as becoming the flagship for American innovation. As far as narratives go, though, I'm watching for micropayments and stablecoins. When it comes to Hadera, with their technology being open source, any governing council member can use it any way they see fit. And what I have noticed over the last few years is that they like to focus on the consensus service and the token service. Couple examples for you. DLA Piper is using both for its hand in the Universal Digital Payments Network. That video explaining what that is will be linked in the description. And as a matter of fact, the UDPN just finished their first pilot testing. I wonder if Hadera was involved. Now, on top of that, speaking of massive payment systems, Drop, an app that uses Hadera's consensus service, was added to the FedNow Service Provider Showcase roster. And if you don't know, the FedNow is the equivalent of the UPI in India, the UDPN over in Asia, and other large payment systems. They now are showcasing Hadera technology to a large audience. Now, not to mention, when it comes to foreign engagement, Shinhan Bank, a very big bank in Korea, has run multiple pilots on Hadera for stablecoin deployment since 2020. And speaking of stablecoins, Hadera just had a recent upgrade called the Stablecoin Studio, and it now allows you to create and issue your own stablecoins. Those are the two narratives I'm watching for Hadera. Even though they've recently expanded into gaming and some Web3, some social apps, payments are what's going to keep it around here, especially if they lean into this stablecoin route, because stablecoins are going to be the conduit. That's going to be the main transfer from fiat to digital. That stablecoin is going to be in the middle. That's how they're going to market it to the masses. Now, let's roll on. Project been talking a lot about recently. Number 6. Mutable X. At first, I thought it was Decentraland that would usher in the future of Web3 gaming. And then in 2021, I thought it was Gala Games. You had people from Sony and Microsoft and Atari coming to work with them. I'm like, yeah. But this year, it's got to be Mutable X. Honestly, I think Mutable X is the best of both of them. 20 plus marketplaces, over 100 titles, and NFT transaction speeds of 9,000 per second. I'm not seeing that anywhere else. And just like with Gala, you have a team of industry veterans from the traditional gaming space. And now that they have that relationship with Amazon Web Services, they can make use of those resources as well. Power moves, all right? Just power moves. But what gives Immutable its actual advantage? Well, it falls down into its technology stack. On one side, you have the Starkware technology. This is for current Web3 companies, Web3 developers who want to build games and make titles and applications. But then you have the ZK EVM, which bridges both worlds. So we're talking about the combination of Web 2 and Web 3. Interoperability. And because of things like their order book, they make the process almost instant. They can process, being a layer 2, they can process transactions over top of Ethereum. Ethereum will still register the transaction. The transaction will be registered on chain because it's not running through Ethereum, just registering on Ethereum. It's so much faster. And I did look into the staking. It's a bit of a strange setup. All right. It requires a bit of effort, not impossible, but if you don't have the time to sit there and monitor it every week or every 2 weeks, then it may become a hassle. With them addressing every aspect of gaming, and they can give you titles, they can give you the development, they can build out your payment system, they can build out your wallet. With them addressing every aspect of gaming, they're just going to rise to the top, in my opinion. That's why they made this list. I'll be covering more Immutable X content. Don't worry. Number 7, and this one might shake up a few people too, and I promise They didn't pay me for it. It's Salana. I firmly believe Salana is going to be a retail-facing juggernaut, and I say this for 3 reasons. Number 1, Salana Pay. Number 2, D-Pins. And number 3, the mobile stack. Now, Salana Pay is just as fast as Stellar. That's why Visa decided to incorporate them into their USDC transfer ecosystem. And I'm starting to see a pattern here. Wherever USDC goes, the money tends to follow. On top of that, they did this Shopify integration this year, which exposes Salana to the billion-dollar e-commerce market. And this also ties into their DePIN, or decentralized physical infrastructure networks. This promises to take the gig economy to a whole nother level. Simply, it's a network where it allows self-employed gig workers to make money in ways they never thought before. 2 examples of this would be Helium and the Render Network token. With Helium, you can actually start a business collecting wireless data, and on Render, you could set up a GPU processing business to compete with some of the titans in that industry. You're offering a much faster and decentralized solution, so you have the leg up. These are just small examples. The DePIN idea is fairly new, but because of that, I am keeping my eyes on Salana. I think it has some major potential. Lastly, is the mobile stack. And I have said it numerous times by now, and I'm pretty sure you guys might be tired of hearing it, but here it goes again. Africa is the epicenter for all of this. All of this is going, when we go into the bull market, and I'll bet you, okay? I'll bet you on this. When we're in the bull market, we're going to hear so much more about Africa and Africa and Africa and Africa.
He knows I love Africa. Come on.
It's going to drive people crazy. They're not going to understand it. Why? You have most of the mobile payments coming from there. You have all of the young developers coming from there. Listen, I'm getting off point here. What I'm saying is the mobile stack for Salana, there's no competition in that market with the exception of Celo, but Salana has the infrastructural advantage being its own chain. Celo is still trying to decide whether or not it wants to be a layer 2. Whatever route they take, Celo's going to be just fine, but Salana is going to overrun them. And I have a scenario that I think is going to play out very soon. You have about 90% mobile penetration on the African continent. What happens when they start to market that Salana saga in Africa? Now, we may have our problems about it here, but people in other countries see things differently than we do. And that's why things tend to be more successful in other countries. When that happens, we're going to start seeing those sales go up. We're going to start seeing on-chain activity go up, and people are going to be freaking out. They're like, what's happening with Salana? Somebody's manipulating the price. No, it's pure adoption. That's exactly what you're looking at here. And on top of that, it allows you to access the Salana Pay, the DePIN network, and other features that come with the mobile stack, which connects you to the NFT world, gaming, social apps, so forth and so on. People are underestimating what that Salana phone is going to be because they're looking at it for what it is now. That's a mistake. I had an OG tell me once, see them before they see you. That's deep. Now, last coin. Another shocker here. Hasn't been on the list in a couple years, but when we did the first list, it was actually the #1 project. We're talking about Cryptocom. Yep. I'm going to pause here to let you throw your phone which way you wish to throw it. Genuinely, I feel CRO has the potential to bypass KuCoin and Binance by 2030 because of their favor in the United States. Now, I know they just ended institutional services for US clients, but that was probably due to the fact of the regulatory uncertainty and competition from Coinbase. They don't need to mess with that market. Let Coinbase have that. What's going to keep Crypto.com around is that debit card. Something I learned when I was doing this research. You know how certain merchants only accept Visa, certain merchants only accept MasterCard, American Express, so forth and so on, right? What if somehow crypto could solve that problem? Because the reason why certain merchants accept certain cards is because they either made the choice or their infrastructure, whatever POS they're using, could only connect to one of the card networks. So what if there's a way to remove that problem and give merchants equal opportunity to pick whichever provider that they choose? Something to think about. Now, Visa is leading the crypto card movement. In 2021, they reported over 1 billion crypto linked payments through their cards. In 2022, the number was 2.5 billion. Visa and MasterCard have been heavily engaged in crypto, not just payments. They're all over the place. This is pretty much known. What I did not know was that back in 2021, Visa conducted a pilot with Crypto.com for Australian customers. Now, check this out. Visa concluded that it would be possible to settle retail transactions in USDC on Ethereum using CRO as the driver. So that means an Australian customer can go to a store with their CRO card, and if they have USDC on it, swipe. And it'll be strictly from USDC. And here's how Visa address the problem of the fees. Fees would be handled by Visa through a secured custody account they have with Circle. Now, I have also been saying for a while, the reason why Visa decided to link up with Ethereum is because they know something about those gas fees that we don't. Simply put, I think they have a solution, and once they get it right, it's gonna drop down on Ethereum and nobody's gonna see it coming. Nobody's going to see it coming. Maybe speculation here. I may be pulling strings, but hey, they wouldn't be working with it if they didn't see an advantage. But with that pilot, with that test in 2021, this means now, just like Stellar Lumens, just like Salana, just like Hadera, you have another place to transact USDC. So I'm just saying, I got one more for you. Let's jump over back to the terminal. I'm about to show you something. Hop on over to coin market cap. Market's going crazy. We almost at 31,000, baby. So what we have here is not my portfolio. This is a mock portfolio. I'm giving you full disclosure right up front and let everyone else know who sees the video and didn't, decided to skip through and didn't understand the context. Listen. This is a mock portfolio. The reason why I put this portfolio together was so that we can track the performance of these 8 picks, basically to put my money where my mouth is. Now, I started this portfolio on October 11th. Okay, so we have about 10 days of data, about almost 2 weeks of data, and the recent pump is serving the portfolio well. And I want to show you this too, the allocation. Now you'll see at the top, USDC. Yeah, stable coins, very important to have in your portfolio, period. If you want to manage your risk tolerance, and again, not financial advice, whatever you want to call it, but after investing in this market, going on 4 years, I have learned to keep a few stables around. And then you'll see Salana 12%, Bitcoin 11%, XDC, XLM, IMX. Let's show them all here. This is the full list here and the values. Now, what I did was, again, this is a mock portfolio, so I put each balance at $1,000. What I'm looking to see here is if we can turn 10K into 100K. All right. Now, I'll do videos frequently on these portfolios. I will not be adding anything to them. This is strictly, this is not changing. None of these numbers will change. None of these assets will change. None of the allocations will change. We are strictly using this to track data. All right. Now, let's look at the performance thus far. Okay. Because again, yeah, that this pump is serving us quite nicely. All right. You can see we're making some. Salana is our most profitable. I made the portfolio again October 11th, so our buy prices reflect the day that the portfolio was created, and got in at $21 for Salana. We almost at 30. 26K for Bitcoin. We at 30. XDC's about to start that pump. We'll break out of the 4-cent range soon, but I got in at the bottom 4, and we are at the top of the 4. All right. Stellar 10 cent. Immutable 51 cent. Where we at? 60. Look, the reason why, again, to show you this is to put my money where my mouth is and to give you the data. This is the actual data. We will be watching this. We will be watching this until the end of the next cycle, which is December of 2025. This list, that's how long this list is going to stand, guys, till December of 2025. Now, CoinMarketCap used to have a way to make these portfolios public. They've made a number of changes. Once I find out how to do it again, definitely will make this shareable so you can watch it in real time yourself. But like I said, I only make these lists once a year. And this is the biggest reason why. It's because I want us all to do well in this new market. We may not have as much time as previous bull cycles. So we need to act now, and we need to act smart. And if you follow this channel, if you rock with the DHN committee, that's what you're going to get. Now, this video's been long as hell. I'm going to let you go. Have a great day. Have a prosperous day. And always remember, if that money is digital, so is the hustle. I'll see you in the next one.